6 o'clock. We do have a quorum, so hopefully the rest of our board members will join, but I'm going to call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Is there any adjustments to the agenda? We do have a interest for us to review the rural community schools organization to, it's called the Rural School Community Alliance Coalition. So we'll put that under discussion items 9.2, 3, 4, 9.4.
Yeah, we also have the letter, the White River Valley SU letter that was just composed and is going out. And my question is whether we want to talk about that and vote approval of the letter or support of the letter, or whether that's done at the SU level. I don't have, you're more.
I think it was done at the SU and the SU board level.
So we don't have to take any action. We might just
Some of it already
refer
went
to
out.
it, but.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Fine
The
with me.
open one already went out.
Yep.
Yep. And then the Ed Committee one, I don't know where that is.
But if you are feeling you want to discuss the letter to inform the board
Well,
more, I
just-
can put it as a
It's
discussion
just
item.
to highlight it.
maybe
So
during
I think
board
in
comment
the
then.
agenda, in the minutes, that's all. And everybody,
Or maybe during board comment, you want to bring that up?
sure.
Okay. Okay. If there's no other adjustments to the agenda, look for a motion to approve the minutes from Monday, January 6th, 2025 at our regular board meeting.
So moved. Second.
So motion made and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Supposed to ask.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Moving too fast here. Thank you very much. Is there any discussion?
Or amendments. Yes.
What?
No.
Yes, thank you. Great. Hearing no discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So moved. Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Great, seeing no public comment.
I don't think we have any public.
Let's move on to board comment.
Yeah, I'd like to
Yes, please.
just highlight a letter that was signed off and being sent to all our state senators, representatives relative to the concerns the SU board has and with the proposed so-called educational reform package being presented by the governor and being considered in its initial stages by the legislature. And a lot of it is that we need more information and documentation. But if you haven't seen the letter, I think it's very well written. And I think what we need to do is try to slow things down, not rush to judgment until there's a thorough review, and a number of very salient questions are raised here and elsewhere about kind of the meat on the bones of the governor's proposal. And I read a 7 Days article that had the acting secretary of education saying there's going to be $183 million saved by their proposal. And there's just, well, how are they going to do that?
Yeah, show us how.
And then they are floating a yield number per student that is very high. So how do you do that?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's to be determined. And I just, I'm glad that we're taking a forefront, and this Rural Community Alliance is going to be helping in this effort. And one thing, when we get to Jamie's comments, was he was suggesting possibly that we invite our state representative and state senators to our March meeting to express our concerns about where it's going, and to hopefully get some assurance that they are keeping an open mind and they're not rushing to judgment. But we can do that down the road. But thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for updating everyone on that. Is there any other board comment? Great, let's move on then to reports to the board. Superintendent's report. Unfortunately, the superintendent is unable to join us due to illness.
I think the big thing in his report, well, there's a couple big things, but just when we talk about our next meeting date, because other districts will have their budget meetings and budget votes on that first Monday, he would like to suggest to move to Monday, March 10th for our regular March meeting. Just
Okay.
want to highlight that right at the top, because otherwise he and Tara are pretty busy that Monday night, right, Tara?
No, we definitely want to we'll have them give attention to other districts that are having their annual meetings at that time, absolutely.
So just say that before we get too far.
Do we want to discuss that now?
He absolutely can.
Great.
That was one of the big things that I know
Okay.
was in his report.
Okay. So the 10th does not work for me, but that doesn't mean that Bill can't run the meeting. I could probably join via Zoom that meeting, but I would, my daughter's actually going in for surgery that day.
Are you
so
going to be
I'm
around, or are
blocking
you
out.
going to be in the Bahamas?
No, I'm not going to be in the Bahamas. I'd love to be.
Just can't be in person.
I just don't want to commit to being in person. My daughter has surgery that day. I don't know when, but I just need to, so like I said, I could probably join via Zoom, but, so how does the 10th work for the rest of you? And if Bill feels
Yeah, if you want me to put.
interested in
come
running the
in, then
meeting?
maybe we talk ahead of time at some point, and you just give me guidance on your thoughts and how you like things to move.
Okay.
That'd be nice. That'd be great for me. And while we're talking about scheduling this March 10th, I just want to point out that the following Monday is St. Patrick's Day.
Yes.
And so I'm glad that we're not necessarily having to meet, because we all have other things to do.
Yeah, like corned beef and cabbage and drink green beer.
Yes, so I just wanted to point out, don't schedule a heavy schedule on the 17th.
Okay. Great, well, if the 10th works for everybody else, Pat and Robert?
Sure, is there any problem, any conflict with select board, which is,
I do not have the select board calendar on my phone, so
I
why don't we
do.
tentatively and check to make sure there's no select board, that would be both the Stockbridge and the Rochester Select Board, make sure there's not meeting.
well, they meet regularly on that,
The Rochester or the Stockbridge?
Rochester,
Regularly meet
on the 10th.
oh, okay, so there is another meeting, but whether that conflicts with us or not.
Right.
Okay. I don't think it does. So let's tentatively go ahead and say the 10th then. Okay. Thank you, sorry to interrupt you, but.
No, that was just the big thing I
Yeah.
really wanted to point out. I think the other thing that if he were here, he would highlight that the high school seniors at White River Valley High School just presented their first capstone project presentations 2 weeks ago. So that is something that's kind of coming at every building level. So the seniors kind of kicked it all off. And then as part of the communication plan, you should have all received your first WRVSU-wide newsletter in the mail.
Yes, that was beautiful. Well done. That was very colorful, very attractive. Really, I look forward to seeing more of those. I do, twice a year or once a year. It definitely will get people reading, and I think it's great. Yeah.
And I don't want to, excuse me,
Yeah. Go ahead.
brag, but I think each school had an article highlighting very interesting and fascinating and creative programs and projects and activities, but I think ours is right up there at the top, if not the top, so I just wanted to put mine. And you could put that on the record, who I was keeping the minutes, but no, I think it's just amazing, all the things that are going on. Now, if you're a parent and everything else, you're clued in. But it never fails to amaze me how many interesting things are going on. And I contrast, 100 years ago, we weren't quite up to this variety and interesting things are going on. So here, I hope they continue. I think there's one more newsletter planned, I think. Is that correct?
I believe so.
For the year. And they just keep going.
Excellent.
Those are
Okay.
the highlights, yeah.
That's the highlights from the superintendent's report. Any questions? Okay, let's move on to the business manager's report. Where's the principal's report?
I think they moved me down just so things could be done before they move to their other meeting. I'm on
Okay.
8.
Oh, good, okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So you have my report. It outlines what's happening in the business office for reports during the month of February, in addition to getting all of our budget mailers out and off to the printers for the 3 meetings that go the day before town meeting, and then Stratford that goes Australian ballot on the day of town meeting. And then I just outlined under the discussion items, the changes that we made to this draft of the audit to the budget that we'll talk about, and then your FY '24 single audit that I'll need you to take action on as well. And if there's any questions?
Great. Is there any questions for our business manager? Great, let's move on to the policy committee then. Policy C8 would be in our packets here.
This is on the budget.
Yep, towards the end. Okay. Pupil privacy rights. And this is warned for possible action tonight. Is there any specifics, comments on this policy?
Have we done an initial review? And is this the second one, or is this our final bite of the apple?
It's
or
warned for possible
I've forgotten.
action. So, yep, C8
Well, no, it was the second reading last meeting.
was the
so-
second reading last meeting.
So this will be the final vote?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yep, so we're looking to take action to accept policy C8.
Could,
Yes, please.
Lily, on the second page, under administrative responsibilities, item 9, I'm not quite sure I understand. It says, and these are all administrative responsibilities, and so number 9 is the rights of a parent under the PPRA, and I assume that's the pupil privacy rights.
Yep.
Administration, transfer to a student who is 18 years old or emancipated minor under state law. Could you just kind of,
Yep, so all
what
these.
does that mean?
All these different points of access, when a kid turns 18, they become an adult, so you can sign over those rights away from parents for the kid to make the decision. So what's shared, what's not shared in terms of information, or if they're emancipated by the courts from their family, which usually happens like the 16, 17 age range, then they also would have that. It means the student has the right of all these things versus we mostly deal in elementary, but
Yeah,
obviously we have some older
okay.
kids. Yeah.
Now I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. Is there any further questions?
I guess the other question has this become an issue, or this seems to be straightforward? I'm not sure there have been many changes since the original one that we're working under, which was June 2018. But in your tenure here, have this been issues, or it just gives us basically, if and when there is a an issue or a question or a problem then we have a policy that we can follow uniformly.
It's never been an issue while I've been here, but what I'll share is especially number 3 around protecting student privacy. As we enter a new national administration, it does protect the directory information for people to be able to call and see if we have such and such student enrolled in our school. So it's not necessarily that it's changed, but it just is a reinforcement of what protections we have under state statute and policy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, is there any more questions? Okay. Then I look for a motion to adopt this policy C8.
I shall move.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Great, hearing no discussion. All those in favor of accepting policy C8 signify by saying aye.
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 So moved.
And we
Okay.
have Justine.
Yay, welcome.
Hi, sorry about that.
No, great to have you here.
Yep, no problem.
Ray's not feeling that well, so she's really fussy, so I'm gonna be kind of in the shadows, unfortunately.
Okay, well, thank you for letting us know. All right, 6.4, RSUD Community Engagement Task Force update.
Yeah, so Pat is on that. He's actually the chair of it. Lucky him.
Okay, great.
We had our
Thank
first
you.
meeting last week. We meet every 2 weeks, and the goal is that we'll have a report for the board in June. Really with some feedback from what Royalton and Bethel did, that the idea of trying to push through the summer was not like beneficial. He couldn't get as much out, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
other things to add?
Yeah, I mean, we just kind of did an intro this last meeting and reviewed the charge essentially for the task force. Tried to develop kind of the norms for our meetings and how we would run them, implement.
Wonderful.
And then basically got to assign some homework. So we all have to just kind of put together questions that we want answered and who and how we can get those answered.
Awesome.
So that's kind of where we're going first, see where things move from there, but, yeah.
That's great. That's wonderful. Well, good luck. Thank you for you doing that.
It wasn't raucous?
What's that?
It wasn't raucous?
No,
Good.
no, it'll be okay.
Good.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and I like it. You got a starting point, but you also got a target that you're going to try to meet us for the calendar to wrap it up before the end of the school year and then report to this board. So those sound like very important dates that we want to be prepared for and getting that very valuable information. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Celebration of learning.
Yeah, so last year, you guys, we discussed like a promotional video. And we finally have it's not like the final edit, but it's pretty close, meaning like it'll be updated to be in a better format to go on our website. But
Great.
I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to view and go from there. It's about 4 minutes long, just so you have an idea.
Our school district is Rochester-Stockbridge Unified District. So we're 2 preschool through 6th grade schools, or 1 school and 2 campuses. And what that means is we have similar offerings. The kids have the same opportunities in terms of essentials. So everybody gets PE 2 days a week, everybody gets outdoor ed 2 days a week, everybody gets art once, music guidance classes once, library once. You know, each school has a K1, a 2nd and 3rd grade, and some sort of a 4, 5, 6 combination. I think that's also a unique piece both Stockbridge and Rochester offer. 5 full days a week preschool for 4-year-olds, and then 2 full days a week for 3-year-olds. So a lot of opportunity for students to come from a young age and start to interact with other kids. I think the message that I would give to families that are looking at why Rochester or Stockbridge could be the right place for their students. We're small schools with a really big heart. Your kid is a person to us, and we want to see them succeed. And that means building successful friendships. That means feeling comfortable enough to ask your teacher or staff member for help, and anybody being willing to do them. And then also the opportunities that we can provide you, from learning to ski or snowboard, to instrumental lessons, to outdoor education opportunities.
I believe children need to be moving in order to learn, and the outdoor education program gives kids an opportunity to enjoy the forest and learn some concepts along the way, such as foraging and making tea out of what we gather. My whole argument for having kids outside is that they will get to care more than they will if we talk about it in the building. So coming outside, sitting down, no matter the weather, the rain, the snow, the sleet, beautiful days like this, all of these opportunities that we have to be able to care about our sense of place. So we develop concepts such as common sense, how to make good choices, self-sufficiency, being able to rely on ourselves, all of those things. I'm trying to instill that in kids so that when I'm eventually gone, our planet will still be here.
It's special just by how small it is. You can really get to know every student. Even I have good relationships with some students I've never had in my class that are older or younger. So it fosters a community where you can create relationships with all of the kids.
I think it's a great place to send your kids to school because we have teachers that really care, and we have really awesome curriculum, and the kids are really doing hands-on learning, and they're getting outside. We have an amazing outdoor education program with a really caring teacher that gives them tea every day, and I think it's one of the greatest things that the school has.
Our school is very small, but a part of what we're able to do very well is meet students' needs individually. So if there are students who are accelerating in their learning, we're able to shuffle things around to meet that student's need. And if there's students who need more support, sometimes we call it double dipping, where we will give that child multiple supports in a day by more than one teacher, likely even, to meet that student's needs. So there isn't anybody who can fall through the cracks here because we are highly aware of everybody, what they need.
One thing parents would say is that we meet their students where they're at, and that whether it's being able to receive help socially, emotionally, navigate a friendship problem, or really struggling academically. I think the openness of staff to communicate with families and really know what their student is struggling with or succeeding in and how to challenge them.
Little cut off, which is one of the things that's be edited, but that's the rough cut right now.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
How are you going to distribute that so other people can learn and get excited?
So our website, some social media, I haven't met, because it's not the final cut, we haven't met to like do a big rollout, but we'll probably leverage some of the different, like each town office kind of has their own electronic communication as well. And then we'll coordinate with some of the surrounding towns too.
Yeah,
Are
absolutely.
there any events that they could be playing or looping?
Oh, that's a good idea. There will be coming up, so we could
You
do
know
that.
what I mean?
Yeah. That's a
Yeah,
good
well, we'll
idea.
have it now, so we'll be
Yeah,
able to,
exactly.
to do that. When people are looking at schools, they're going to the website.
They are.
You're going to a website.
I was shocked how many inquiries we get.
That's good.
That just like, I noticed this on your website, can you tell me more? When family, even when they're house shopping, now I've been getting
That's
emails
cool.
and
That's
inquiries.
great.
So that's been great, because I wasn't sure that was always the case, right?
Well, that's the world we live in now.
Right.
You know, yeah.
Well, and
That's-
sometimes I thought websites weren't even, right, like it was all social media driven, but most of the questions have come from
From
the
a
website,
website.
which is great.
Yeah.
May I
Robert?
suggest plastering everything with QR codes to the,
Oh, good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it just,
Yeah.
in a lot of the things that you send out, And at any functions and whatever, you just put a QR code that they can point to and
Yeah,
goes right to the video.
I like it.
Yeah, even like a flyer that could go at all the local libraries.
Yeah.
You know, the QR code.
It's great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any other comments or on the celebration of learning, the video?
I was thinking always keeping the real estate, local realtors informed about what we're doing and getting them excited, whether it's a copy of our community newsletter or your postings from the principal, because they're the ones that people call and say, what about Stockbridge? And
Right.
to the extent that they're, oh, yes, you should.
Yeah, here, check out, this is the
check
latest
out, and
newsletter
they're
from
really
the
good, or
school.
they do a
Yeah.
lot. In other words, they can, in other words, they've got a megaphone for hopefully new families are going to move here and stay.
Absolutely.
And there's like Kyle Kushner is one of the, I mean, he kind of specializes, it seems to me, in Stockbridge, so he'd be one of them. There's a few others too, but
Yeah, Patty Harvey.
anyway, thank you.
Wonderful, great idea, thank you. All right, additional boards to the report, the principal's academic winter data report.
Yeah. So first we'll just start with the principal's report. I'll share, it's I Love to Read Month.
Oh, yeah.
And today in Stockbridge, we kicked that off with books and bagels, where families could come in and do bagels for breakfast and read. And then next, just waiting to confirm on my bagels, but next Tuesday we'll be doing the same in Rochester.
Great.
And it was very well attended this morning, so that was great to see. The other highlight I would share, well, two things. One is our leadership team participated in a literacy training that was offered about how to bring literacy into all content areas. And it was probably one of the more informative trainings that we've taken as a group. So now we'll bring that back to our staff. The other thing that I will add is as of, what day was it? Monday last week, Alicia, who is our behavior support specialist, returned from maternity leave. So that kind of fills in one of those social emotional gaps, thankfully.
Wonderful.
She'll be in both buildings. Thank you. There were quite a group of people that helped support while she was out, so that was great.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, everyone.
So I appreciate that. And then I would say the other great thing is our partnership with Gifford Pediatrics has really taken off. We've had over a dozen families take advantage of that. We've only had 3 clinics.
Nice.
So we're going to continue to build that relationship with folks, but I think it's a huge advantage
Absolutely.
that they come over once every other, 2 times a month essentially. To that, especially as people have had all sorts of sicknesses, I think it's been a huge benefit.
Absolutely.
So any questions about that? We have 2 more winter wellnesses left. We've been moving on.
Wow, already,
I
huh?
know. Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
One is for those of us who have forgotten, CVEDC.
Oh, I'm not, Central Vermont Education, I don't know what the D stands for off the top of my head. It's a professional learning group that provides different professional developments throughout the state. But they're they're Champlain Valley educator.
Valley, yeah, there
Yeah,
it is.
Valley.
I was like, not Central
Yeah, it's great
Vermont.
that organization exists and you can tap it. I think
Yes.
that's fantastic.
Right above that, that is very exciting to see that the 6th grade students presented at the Future City
Oh,
in
yes.
Boston.
Thank you.
And they placed
Yes.
5th in the essay writing competition out of 33 schools from the New England region.
That's cool.
And I'll share, they're mad about 5th place. Because they had 5 points deducted because they didn't see that not only is it an essay, but they had to have all these graphics of how all their different systems worked in their new sustainable city or their future city, like vertical farming. And that had a word limit and they went over by like 5 words.
Oh!
So they lost 5 points.
Oh!
And that would have put them in third place. So they were very bitter going into that presentation. But they did a great job and had an amazing experience presenting. They went as a whole class
That's
down there to
exciting.
present last Saturday. And they also won the Innovators Award for their water system, which was turning salt water into fresh water that people could use. I have a whole presentation for you guys next.
For next, oh, great,
month.
yeah, I can't wait.
And I think they're gonna come and explain all, not just present, but explain all the different parts to the project, because there are quite a few parts.
Yeah, I really like that research project having to do with water and all the aspects of water. Don't forget water conservation as well. And it sounded like they dealt with that a little bit in Boston. But that's really exciting.
Yes.
Under subject area 3, the partnership with Gifford, sounds like it's really kicking off with families in Gifford. And you said almost 12 are
Right around there,
participating.
yeah.
Does that represent most of the families? Are we reaching, or are their participation rate? How would you describe that roughly in percentage terms? Are we over 50 or is it?
We're not over 50%. What I would share is that it's several families who have moved into the area and haven't necessarily established primary health care providers, so they've been able to switch their care because transportation or just getting in somewhere is a hard concept. Also families who just haven't had a visit in a while for a wide variety of reasons. And then really accessing, like, not putting off going to the doctor because you don't feel well is what I would describe. So a lot of sick visits have happened.
And I think I misspoke. It's not, we don't want all the families. It's the families that could use the assistance support of the Gifford.
It's open to any family.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. We do try and reach out to connect folks that maybe we know and through
Have more of a
conversation
challenge.
have that, sometimes we're in an isolated area and
Yeah,
it's a barrier.
Yeah.
they're there.
You're supposed to go to the doctor if you don't feel sick.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Well, I just brought Jana to get her eyes checked, and so we found out she needs glasses
Right.
because her focus is off. Her vision is good, it's her focus.
Okay.
She was getting migraines.
So
And then
she's
I asked
straining.
the eye doctor, I was like, so, like, how often are you supposed to get your eyes checked? She's like, every 2 years. I go, man, I'm like 20 years too.
An old story about our son Jimmy when he was growing up, and I remember in minor league baseball, even though we had kind of the softer ball, but he was in the outfield, and we hit him a fly ball, and he missed it, hit him right in the thing, and no big deal. But then that got us, well, gee whiz, maybe we should go see an eye. And sure enough, he needed glasses, but it was one of, we're all observant parents, but sometimes we've got gaps in our focus areas. Last thing is that there's going to be a Rochester-Stockbridge PTO fundraising activity called Winterfest. Can you give a preview? That's on the 9th. I don't want to miss that.
It's Saturday. It's this weekend. It starts at 10, I believe. They're working together with Rochester Recreation. It's all outdoor activities, ice skating. I think the fire departments are putting something on as well, like a little relay, snowshoeing.
Sunday, right?
Sunday, yep, the 9th. There's a chili cook-off. There's a lot. There's a bake sale. There's a lot of things going on
That's
in a
great.
small area, but it's
Good.
great. Great involvement. So,
That's great, thank you.
yeah, thank you.
And where is that located?
That's going to be at Rochester at the skate rink,
Okay.
or the skate park, skating rink. Right now, it's skate space.
Are they
Right
looking
now
for a
it's
new
cold.
word?
Right now, it's cold enough that it's the ice skating space.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions for Lindy on her principal's report? If not, we'll move on to the academic.
Report. So
Yes.
kind of to start on page 1, this just gives like an overview of some definitions, some reminders of different bands. Everything you see today is based on percentile scores and we talk a little bit about scale scores when we talk about growth rate or progress rate. So we have some exciting data. I'll kind of go to the next page and we can go back to the definitions if needed. But if you look at page 2 is our mathematics data, and I just, right off the bat, 67% of our kindergarten through 6th grade students are currently meeting or exceeding the expectations. And the number of students that were scoring well below expectations in that 1st to 39th percentile has decreased by 1/3 since the fall. So we saw some huge gains. Also to share that 1st grade, every single student is either meeting or exceeding the expectations in mathematics according to Track Night Progress, but it's what we're seeing in other areas as well.
Great.
That first chart up top shows the progress rate. So this shows us the students who took the same test. Well, they took the test in the winter of 23-24. And they were also with us to take it in this past winter in July or January. We're still in winter, but so their growth rate. So you'll see it's listed like grade K or kindergarten. Those are our current 1st grade students. So in the fall, the winter of last year, their scaled score was about, it was 595. This year, the average scale score, I should say, is 655 of that group.
Different class.
Same class, like they've moved up a grade level. So
Okay.
they were kindergarten last year, now they're 1st grade this year.
Understood. Okay.
Okay, and then that gives us a progress rate.
Sure.
That's why you don't see a 6th grade on there
Okay.
when you look at the whole chart. So as a reminder for progress rate from year to year, we want to see either an average of a 1.0 or more. That means they're progressing about a year's worth
Okay.
at a time. If they're progressing as a cohort over a year or over 1.0, then it's more than a year's worth of.
Which is what the 4th graders.
Yeah, right, that
They
fourth,
progressed over a year.
now 5th, right?
Progressed.
They were 4th graders last year, now they're 5th graders, okay? Things that's a little different, right? 78 kids that it shows, that's because there were 78 kids that tested the same window. Like, if you weren't with us last winter, you're not in this configuration.
Oh, okay.
You have to be with us,
And being small,
yeah.
small number of students, I'm sure if one student,
Did not progress, it could pull it
it
down
can
a
really
little bit.
affect the number drastically.
It could, yep.
Yeah.
So we're making good gains. The other thing to think about is our primary grades have been excelling.
Yes.
So that progress rate, while we'd like to see it more closer to 1.0,
They're still progressing.
they were progressing well ahead when we started. Does that make sense? So that's why it may not be as high, but it's great to see something like the current 5th graders progress over a year, because that's a group that hasn't had that consistent math instruction from the get-go, like some of our primary grades.
Yeah, they're the 1.4.
Yep.
Yeah.
So making huge gains. The next bar graph, if you will, shows like the bands. Okay, so the percentage of students performing in each proficiency band. So red is well below, yellow is below, blue is expected, and excuse me, green is above expected. So it shows you what it looked like in the fall. So you'll notice there's a lot less red when you compare grade level fall to winter. For each grade level, it's a little hard for my eyes to process that.
No, but you're seeing improvement
We are seeing improvement.
from fall to winter.
Yeah, so like I said, 67% K through 6 are meeting or exceeding expectations. We set our meeting expectations at the 60th percentile or higher, because we found that on this test, that's what translates to students meeting the state test in March. Whereas nationally, meeting expectations is in the 50th percentile or higher. So
Okay.
there's another 15% of our students that are in that 50th to 59th percentile. So we still have some kiddos that are also really close to meeting as well. In terms of content within mathematics, our largest growth was in number and operations in base 10. Students really excelled with that in measurement and data. We're continuing to build skills, and we still saw some growth in proficiency around operations and algebraic thinking. I think fractions and multiplication and equations, yeah.
Seems like there's a pattern though, each grade level, if you look, like
Yeah.
the first kindergarten first, a lot of them are above expected, and then that slowly decreases over time. Do you think that's the group? Do you think it's
I think it's,
just 'cause things
to
get
me,
harder,
it's some of it gets harder, right? Like, a constant trip up when you get into second grade is how strong are you in place value if you don't have a good understanding of that, and it really gets specific with language in second grade.
Yeah.
Things could start to get confusing because stuff becomes multi-digit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The other thing I'll share is you have to remember for our 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, yep, 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, they have not had consistent mathematics programming in the primary grades. Like, we did not adopt using bridges for all students with fidelity until they were in, like, till the 6th graders
That
were
and what?
in
They were
3rd grade.
COVID too, right?
Right, so
Yeah.
just that lack of
Yeah.
building a number sense at a young age, like that that makes it harder to close it.
Yeah.
Because what were we doing before bridges? It was just,
It depends.
it depended. Okay, so that's what the
Right,
problem was. It wasn't
um,
consistent.
Engage New York here in Stockbridge when I started, which my understanding is that was just picked because it was a free curriculum. Some people were doing bridges in Rochester, so it was when we had the influx of ESSER money that we were really able to switch all our instructional strategies to the same. So that's why you kind of see that bigger, that change. Patrick is what I would say as well. And they're also a group that hasn't always had a math interventionist. We've only had math intervention this is our 3rd year with it. Maybe started 4th year with it.
So only since they were 6th graders were in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it seems like 2nd grade is like pretty crucial, right?
it is for place value, right?
Yeah.
And then 3rd grade really becomes when we try and get to that, it's when multiplication starts and we try and get to automaticity of multiplication facts, not like probably the time testing that some of us took on our multiplication facts when we were younger, but being able to recall those and not have to use repeated addition.
Yeah.
But really understanding that multiplication is 2 groups of 3, not 3 plus 3.
Yeah.
And getting that concept.
Yeah.
So you really are getting to an area model eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are kind of the 2 switches.
6.
Well, I had this conversation today. Somebody goes 5, and I was like, not addition, not addition. 2 groups of 3.
Yeah.
And there was a long pause, and I was like, oh boy, okay, good to know. To the teacher, and right? Like,
Yeah.
so, and the way you see that when students are younger is skip counting, right? Like they can count not just by 1s, but by 2s, by 5s, 10s. Those are big ones.
Yeah.
And then as they get older, we try and start at 3s and not start at 3, right? Like start at 15. Now count by 3s.
Right.
Yeah. These are all things I've learned from Bonnie Horn. I wish I could.
So it's nice to hear that we have a strong mathematic base.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It is. And it's also allowing, right? Like, one of the questions is always like, especially when we first implemented bridges, but I can't get through all the material because kids don't have a strong enough background knowledge to be able to do it. Shouldn't I just back up? And we've always started where you're supposed to start, regardless, and then leveraged intervention to fill that in. Well, now kids with each grade, like our upper elementary teachers, are finally going to get to have a group that walks in that has gotten through a whole year's worth of curriculum and not had to move slower because we don't have foundational skills.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting. Any other math questions before I go on? On page 3, we switched to English language arts. So 54% of our K through 6 students are currently meeting or exceeding expectations. And that's an increase of 9 percentage points since the fall. So we've really had a drastic improvement. We were just hovering right around 40% in the fall on baseline. And again, the number of students that were scoring well below expectations decreased by 1/3 since the fall. What we're seeing in the next chart is again from last winter to this winter, how have students progressed. You'll notice that our current 6th graders have progressed the most, which is great to see. And as well as our current 5th graders. They've shown the most growth. And there's a little bit of a waiver.
What do you think that's due to?
Their growth.
Yeah.
One is a little bit of confidence that like you can actually read every passage that's in front of you. I would say that our direct instruction has definitely closed some gaps for especially our upper elementary kiddos, and really focused in on like, you can read this whole passage. It might take you a while and that's okay.
Is it a lot of group reading? Or
You're in a group based on where you are,
yeah.
but everybody does a little bit of reading and everybody follows along at the same time. And then there's individual fluency and comprehension checkouts. So to make sure students are brought to mastery. So I think that's definitely a huge piece of it. I would say the other change is just one of our largest gains was in vocabulary acquisition, which was great for students to start to have some understanding, which also is developed a little bit in our spelling program, but to have some understanding of, you know, student is happy, what word shows happy? Skipped, or, and students have to pick a word out of a sentence. So it was interesting to see that be the area of largest gain. And people are just having really good conversations too about like, we're gonna stop. What does this word mean? Do you understand? Kids will be like, oh, I know. Okay.
And that's what I mean, like.
Okay, tell me.
Group.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's an emphasis in vocabulary before they read and while they read too.
So there's some peer support,
Yeah,
it seems like, yeah.
peer support, teacher
Yeah.
support.
Yeah.
So that was great. The other thing I'll share is 23% of kiddos are in that 50th to 59th percentile too. So we have some kiddos who are also really, really close, and for the first time have jumped up out of the red or out of the yellow. So we haven't seen that before from some of these kiddos.
Great.
One area that we're still working on is conventions of standard English, the use of the comma or a conjunction or possessive. It's is interesting in the way that this test measures that is both through listening. So like, how would you speak to your teacher? And then it reads a couple of sentences. I'm like, it depends on the kiddo. I always think when kids are testing my office and I hear that question, I'm like, oh, this could be an interesting response, right? It just depends on, but then also they have to be able to identify like, this is what the sentence should say, which, you know, Mike went to the grocery store. This is Mike's basket. And it's like a picture, which really has nothing to do with the thing. But which Mike should you use? And then there's 4 different Mikes. And they have to pick. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
But
That's cool.
so lots of celebrations, which has been great, and good jumping off point because we will do state testing starting in the end of March, beginning of April. So good momentum there to move forward.
So I have a question. I'm
Yeah.
looking at the progress rate.
Yes.
For the kindergarten, and it says it's
Which is the current first graders. Because it's measuring
Yes,
from
yes, the
last
current rate.
winter. It just,
Yes.
I just have to
okay.
keep saying
So,
that for myself
yes.
just as much as.
So I'm looking, it says 0.25, but I look at the chart and it shows that the above expected is dramatically higher.
You
than-
don't have current, on this chart, there's no current kindergarten because they didn't take this test last winter. They would have been preschoolers.
So
The chart on the bottom
Yeah.
is our current kindergartners right now.
Oh,
So they're not up top, they're just
fall
on the
to
bottom.
winter.
Yep, it's fall to winter.
It's, yeah. it's not
This
the same.
compares last winter's test to
okay.
this winter's test.
So I'm looking at, down here, I'm looking at the fall being the,
This past fall.
This past fall. So
yeah,
just in the last
2024.
6 months.
Yep,
And winter being
this past month.
just past month, but it's 2 different classes?
No, up here it's 2 different classes.
Up here, thank you, okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes,
It's-
up here
it's
it's 2
very
different classes.
confusing.
Okay.
And I just have to keep saying it over and
Yeah,
over to
they're-
remind
they're-
myself.
They're separate from each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't roll them up in the program. We don't really
Okay.
know.
Thank
why.
you, I was,
Yeah, no. So again, like that growth rate has, so if we look at them.
so the progress rate
First
really
graders.
doesn't, like, it's not
It's
comparing this.
measuring, but progress rate is supposed to measure over a year.
Okay.
So that's why you compare last winter's test to this winter's test.
So being 0.25, what do you, what's your takeaway on that with
So
kindergarten?
if I look at the
So the current
first
first
graders,
graders.
yeah,
Yeah,
current first
yeah.
graders, I just have to switch my brain
Yeah.
for a second.
Well, it looks like they're doing
Yeah, they're doing,
well this year.
yeah.
Right, I just,
Or do you
There's
think
a
they were
little bit of
above
a
average
leap.
last year?
right, there's a little bit of, they were above average last year. There's a huge leap in kindergarten to first grade,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not as many pictures, it's a lot of sounding words out, there's actual passages that they
Oh,
have to
yeah.
read in that test. So for some of them, this is the first time they got like 3 sentences where they had to read it and answer a question
Claire's
on the
starting to
test.
break the code.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah. I love it.
So not where I would want us to be in terms of progress rate, but it's also not something I'm you walk in that room and everybody's reading
Yeah.
in both
yeah.
buildings.
That's why I was just
that makes
curious.
sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Excellent, thank you. Is there any other questions on English?
Oh, and I guess I could have answered that myself, huh? Because it has the dot next to it. And so kindergarten had the green last year, right?
Right,
So
which
it
means
says that
they, as a group,
They were above
average,
expected then.
they were well above, yeah, they
Sure,
were above.
okay.
And then the blue means they're at expected right now, as a
Yes.
group, like in the
Yeah,
average.
yeah.
Right, so
Okay.
it's not concerning because they're
Yeah,
both.
yeah. No,
Obviously, the goal, right, is that no matter where they tested last year, even if it's above, we want to keep meeting them
Yes.
up, right? Keep pushing. Which is why that progress rate is important.
Yeah.
To make sure that we're still pushing at a rate that's appropriate. Just because they're ahead doesn't mean we slow down. We
yeah,
keep going.
you'd like to see it up.
Yeah.
Right.
Still want to make a year's worth of
Yeah, yeah,
gains
yeah,
in between each test. So.
Great, is there any other questions on the English progress report? Okay. Great. So we'll move on to discussion. 9.1 Board Development Series. I've decided that we are going to discuss next board meeting, our board goals and review where we are and are we meeting them and discuss maybe some steps going forward, just to keep them fresh in our mind and keep it right on the,
Yeah.
sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. All right, draft.
Considering I couldn't tell you what all of them are right now, I think that's a great idea.
We'll get them sent out again shortly after this meeting and then again closer.
Yeah.
But right, no, it's
No,
helpful.
but no,
It's
it'd be
helpful to
great.
like
Yeah. Get
go
my
over it
mind
maybe
thinking that
now and then
way.
go over it again as we get closer.
Good thing to think about while I'm driving around.
Yeah. Okay, draft 5 of the FY26 budget and corresponding tax, projected tax sheet. Do we want to wait for Tara or do you want to go ahead and lead
I can
that?
definitely start it.
Okay.
And then if there's more questions, I bet you she'll be back shortly.
Okay.
So like she mentioned in her, at the bottom of her business manager's report, things that have been added or changed in this version of the budget. We did add the classroom teacher back in like we discussed. So that is bumped back up in there. And then all secondary tuition has been updated, and she did have pretty much everybody's announced tuition rates for that point. So that is based on enrollment as of November. Oh, I thought it was her.
I was like, there she
Perfect
is.
timing. And that is a projected increase because we have had some families move in, 7 through 12, right? So that's a projected increase of $231,950. So that's a huge increase that we
But that
really-
also gives us more per
Exactly.
pupil, so.
Right.
Yeah.
So, it is, right, it's one of those things that it balances each other out.
Yep. But you said the announced tuitions are now like solidified with the state.
There was only one that she didn't have because it was a private school.
Okay.
But she had a rough estimate based on the bill that is fairly accurate within
Okay.
a little bit. And then that was, I just want to double check, but I believe that's it on the expenditure side. And then what we did do, if you flip to your revenue page, which is this one.
Yep.
Okay. We added 200 and 200. It gets me every time. 200,000 from the fund balance because next year we'll switch to that foundation formula. This doesn't put us like in a hole. I know we've always advised like don't put this much revenue back because then we're starting that far behind. The formula changes next year's and it won't have that impact on us like before. So we put 200,000 back in out of the 382,726 fund balance. I believe Tara was going to give a recommendation to keep roughly 40,000 of that aside because there's bills that usually tend to come in after the fact.
Yep.
Like last year we had about $26,000 worth of bills that came in like after. So that's why you don't ever use the full.
Right, okay, and so once,
40K is set aside for what?
Just like things that come in after our June 30th cut, but were things that happened in this school year.
so
that's why
because they
she
still
keeps-
would be paid with the budget from the previous school year,
Right.
but if the bank account was drained, then,
Accounts payable or whatever.
yeah.
Right.
For accounts payable, for
Yeah.
stuff. And then anything that's left, if all of the bills are paid, would roll
Right.
into the, next year's fund balance.
Yes. So,
Okay, 40,000 for that.
yeah, and then 200,000, so that leaves you with like 140, roughly 142 and
Yep.
change, to be split up among, and you don't have to have these answers tonight, right? But to be split up among, capital improvement fund and our
Right.
tuition fund, however you guys wanted to do that.
Right.
We say, what
So,
when we think, like, when we were talking about it in the past, we were talking about 2 or 3 students?
Right, how many students to put in? I think
Yeah.
we've been putting in 2.
2.
Well, I think we put in 2, maybe 3 last year. Can't remember what that balance
Okay.
is.
I think we might have it on our last
Right.
round.
So, and what'd you say, it's a remainder of,
There's like 142,000 to figure out how to split with tuition and again, you don't have to have that, we have time before you.
and what's tuition per?
Depends where a kiddo goes.
Roughly 20 to 25.
20 to 20, yeah, 25 is on the high side,
Okay,
yep.
so maybe it's the 42
42.
and then the 100 to
Into the
capital
capital
improvements.
improvement. And-
I would like to see 100 go to.
And then there's
capital.
still the line item in the revenue side for 65,000 that you guys make the one-time transfer
Yeah,
Right, to
to keep boosting that
Yeah.
regardless of what the surplus is.
yeah, okay.
So those were the big things, the $200,000 towards the revenue side of things really
helps?
It basically covers the teacher we put back in and then reduces the tax rate even more.
Okay.
So if you go to, the tuition count hasn't really changed, which is the next page. It's pretty much the same. If you go to your tax sheet, your estimated tax sheet, which looks like this, okay? A couple of things to note is that we are under the education spending per pupil cost, so we're not over.
Okay.
We're not over.
And that still is a thing, though.
It still is a thing, and it's a thing that will carry over into the new foundation formula. They're gonna say this is how much you get per pupil.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're under is a good thing to think about as we move forward in future years' budgets too.
And does she put that?
How much we're under by?
Yeah.
Where
I don't
is
think I
it?
see it on
I
this. Sometimes she
don't.
puts in, but it shows.
If it shows you, right, so on this box over on the right, if you go over to the right.
Yep.
Okay, so, our FY '25, which is what we're in now, okay, our per pupil spending was $12,470.12, and then our per pupil for next year would be $12,398.
Yep.
And
Okay.
59 cents, which actually is a decrease from last year, and that's what goes on your warning.
Yes. Okay.
Okay?
Right. You have to have the per pupil spending on the warning.
Right.
Yep. Okay.
And then the impact that has on your taxes, right, is that in Rochester, the change is 13.1309, which is 13 cents compared to last year roughly. And it also gives you the impact per $100,000 home
Yep.
value, which I think is helpful. And in Stockbridge, it's 0.0258.
Right. Right, because last year, due to the Stockbridge CLA, they saw such a dramatic change.
Right.
And this year, there's not as much of a dramatic change in their CLA.
Well, so if you look, it says your actual CLA.
Oh, it's 55, but
Remember, there's a new formula to balance that
help
out
us,
now. So there's not that big swing.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, we're helped by
So
that.
what does it
Yes.
increase, what's the percentage that it increases?
So in
tax?
Rochester, the percentage increase on your taxes is 7.6%. In Stockbridge, it's 1.39%. And I think Stockbridge just, like Amy said, it seems to be the swing one year, one plays more than the other.
Right, they don't, there's not both that get hit at the same time.
Not at the same time.
And I do see that to change 1 cent of that tax rate, we would have to change $31,000 in the
Yeah.
budget. Just to change 1 cent.
Right.
And that's
To change 1 cent on that bottom
change
line.
one
that's
cent.
2 cents, it's
Right.
2.58 cents, right?
Right, but in
To
a-
change it down to 1 or 0.158, you would need to either increase revenue by this much or
Yeah,
decrease
yeah.
expenditures by that
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, yeah.
So just to,
Right.
as we're looking at it.
The other thing that could potentially change is there's talk about the yield shifting again with different changes around universal meals and things like that and spending. So it's an advantage that we vote earlier or later.
Later, right.
Later, sorry, not earlier.
Right.
So that could potentially change the tax rate again.
And do you think, is the prediction that it will decrease or increase?
You want it to increase.
We
'cause
want it
then
to increase, and-
then it'll decrease your tax rate.
Right, we want it to increase, and is that the inclination that
I don't know, because
Don't
that
know.
information just kind of came out last week, so.
Okay.
And why is that apt to change?
Well, it's how much goes into the ed fund from other sources. So like if,
How many people are gambling?
it's a small sliver, yes.
It is, I saw it on the news,
Yeah,
it showed it was.
it's a very small sliver.
Yeah.
But there's other funds that come out from that funding, right? Like our
Sure.
universal meal program comes out of that funding, which is why it changes. So sometimes it's how much surplus from the previous year went in. It just depends. There's quite the formula for it,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's ultimately up to the legislature.
yeah.
Okay, and they can change that up until, do they have a drop dead date that they have to?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, that's what I was, which is just crazy.
It's
that
why
they
it's
can do
always
that.
like an approximate or an estimated tax rate
Right.
that you're voting on, because it could change. That piece could change, which changes people's taxes.
I mean, I can't imagine it's
I don't know.
super impactful. I mean,
I think if you're someone that's counting, that maybe you miss the cutoff for the, that it's based on your income and you're actually paying, but you might just be on that cusp of like, man, I wish my income impacted this a little more. It might be bigger
yeah.
increase than you realize.
Question on the rent that will be paid. Where is that in the budget? I
Yep, that's in,
didn't see that.
hold on, I gotta find the right line item to tell you. It is in here. In two different. It is, a majority of it is in under contracted instructional services.
What page is that on?
Yep, that's page 1, under regular ed instruction, line item, talk about it, keep my eyes checked. 321. That will be in there. That's a majority of it. And then there's another place, under 811, dues and fees, where the rest of it will come out, on that same page.
Okay. Great. I definitely would like to see that revenue indeed go into our budget. I do understand the need to continually build up our capital reserve fund. But I do think it's appropriate to put at least that $200,000 in, give it back to the taxpayers to help reduce the taxes. I thought that there was, and it might, I thought there was information about how much our current funds, our capital improvement fund and our tuition fund currently, balance that is currently in it.
Do you have those numbers?
I don't, I thought that we got them recently, though. I thought it was in our last meeting, but I'm not finding it. So I thought,
so too, but it wasn't in it.
so when,
But then
so maybe when Tara comes, we
That's where I
can
was
get
hoping
that.
Tara would be here to give us
information
that,
from her.
those totals, yeah.
We talked about covering the cost of the rental as part, out of one of the endowment funds.
That was in
We
the-
talked about, there hasn't been
There hasn't been a decision, I
decision.
just wondering if that's, because that would be an appropriate, that since that is all meant, that rental, the use of that space is meant to enhance the education, and that would be in line with what the endowment, that particular endowment fund.
Right, that was
Yeah,
a
it's around like
conversation.
14,000, isn't it? That's something like that, and we're talking about coming out of an endowment.
Yeah, it's 13,000 plus nearly 7, so it's around 20.
Oh, 20.
It's not all that, but you guys haven't agreed on the lease agreement yet, so we can't share that
Right.
information until it's finalized.
Okay, yes, let's
Keep that in
schedule a
mind.
meeting with the endowment committee so that we could review the option and see if it's something we could present to the administration.
The reason I mention it is because there are, in discussions, people will say, well, gee, the town is getting this much income, right? And then people will say, oh, well, that's just out of other taxes.
Right,
But if it's coming out of the endowment, it isn't.
It's not coming out of anybody's
and it
taxes.
can actually go in as on the revenue side and potentially cut down the tax rate even more,
Right.
depending on how much the endowment committee decides, right? It's 31,000 per penny, but even if
Nearly a penny.
it's not, even if it covers what potentially the lease amount could be,
It's still-
then that's half a penny,
Yeah.
and every little bit adds up.
Right, exactly.
Right, especially depending when you look at the tax rate.
So,
That might drop
Yeah.
some more.
so I am interested to, well, when Tara comes on, to know what our current balances are, but I was definitely wanted a conversation with you, Pat, around the capital improvements, where we're at, what we're looking at for in the near future, so that we can make sure that we do keep moving forward on improving our facilities and are able to fund it appropriately, but still remain responsible to the taxpayers to.
Yeah, I guess we have to circle back with Jamie and see what came of the
Okay.
estimates for the windows, where that's at. Because that was through EEI, right?
It was.
Yeah.
And we agreed about splitting that project, I think, in two.
Yeah.
Last time we met.
Yeah.
Well, that might help inform how much we want to recommend to go
I think
into.
that also keeps you gave us permission to use up to $200,000.
Yes.
So I think the
And
thought
that's about
originally.
what it was.
For the whole project in
Yeah,
both schools,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But the thought was to split it, to keep it within that kind of prioritize and do it over basic.
Yeah.
Because there's been other projects that have popped up, like the grease trap, that has to be replaced and will be replaced February vacation.
How often does that have to be done?
I don't know that it's ever been done in Rochester, so.
I remember being on the
Oh,
board. I remember that
Okay.
them talking about the grease trap.
We've been talking about it at least 2 to 3 years as something that has needed to be done.
That might be
since-
where.
Since I've been around,
The grease trap?
in the kitchen in Rochester.
Yes.
And we need the longer break to ensure that when they open it up, because
Yes.
the pipes are older. I've learned a lot.
Yes, okay.
It can become. a
Okay, well,
project.
Yes.
if you're able to, put that on your list to get with Jamie, I just think that would really
Yeah.
help us, inform us to make the correct decisions about
Sure.
how much we want to recommend
Yeah, we need
funding.
that for, I think we should have a goal of trying to get our budget voted next month. Yeah, we always can change it with new information coming, but at least have some idea of that so we can move ahead on the.
Yeah, so if we have an answer, if we have an answer as to what the windows are going to cost, what we have in the fund now, and what will be remaining after that project, so that way we know what we can do moving forward.
Yeah.
And kind of what our next steps are.
Because when we adopt the budget, do we recommend at that time what we want to put as
Well, you'll
reserve
do
funds?
your
You'll do the
warning,
whole warning, yeah.
which
okay.
will be,
So let's all work towards getting all that. The
Yeah.
endowment committee will meet.
Yeah.
We'll meet with Jamie to get some of these.
And Tara gives us the balances
The
for
balances, yeah.
both the tuition and the capital.
Yeah, we can
I think
decide on
the
what to
capital is
do.
going to be far more than what we've set aside, but the opportunities to set money aside, in my opinion, is going to decrease. I'm thinking along your lines that if we got roughly $142,000 of money that we split between tuition and, I like your 100,000 for capital. The other thing is we've got, the 200,000 has really helped us reduce the tax rate, but we're going to have to kind of, quote, make that up next year by another surplus or
not with the new formula.
not within the formula? Okay.
Right.
So I think the good news is if you look at Tara's tax sheet from her January 2nd tax sheet to her February or January 31st, the tax impact both in Rochester and in Stockbridge has gone down dramatically. Rochester was well over 11%, and now it's under 8%. And Stockbridge was 7, now it's down to like 1.5.
Yeah, it was
So,
8,
It was 8, yeah.
8.847.
so we're really
An 8 team.
creative, we're doing our job. That's what we're doing. And I think we've got some options. If we'll be ready to make that decision next month, I'd recommend it.
People have mentioned to me that, well, the savings for dropping the high school is minimal. But I see a drop of 24,800 in electricity and a drop of 28,000 in fuel oil. That's not chump change.
No, it isn't.
That's,
No, it isn't.
Well, I think
so,
probably why that's said, right, is we haven't fully budgeted for it this whole time. Like when I first started, and Amy can attest to this, it used to be a huge line item, and we've dropped it down significantly by not accessing it each year. So, yeah.
right, so at any rate, I think it's good talking points when people say, well,
Right.
gee, we're not dropping that much. Well, no, we are dropping a lot. We don't know,
Just takes a lot to change the tax rate.
right.
It's a lot of money, but it's not easy to shift it by a penny here and there. Oh, there she is. Look at that. Hi, Tara. Tara, we just reviewed the changes, and we're talking about the surplus and putting that in. I explained that next year, it's okay that we're putting more in for our surplus this year because the formula changes next year, which won't require us to use, won't give us that ability. Okay. There are some questions about fund balances.
Yeah, I would wonder if you were able to tonight provide us with our capital fund balance and our tuition fund balance. I thought you had provided this before, but I can't find my paperwork. If you're not able to tonight, then that's okay. If you could get that out to the board. We have some action items for board members to around that.
Capital projects, $308,385.95. Tuition reserve is $60,000.
Okay,
$308,385.95.
Okay. And the tuition?
$60,000.
Okay, thank you. And great, okay.
And I have the proposals here for the windows.
Okay, great. And Patrick,
Is that the one with the gym and in here, Patrick?
What's that?
Remember, we had to get them to come back.
So this might not be,
Just check to make sure it has the multi-purpose windows in here and the gym windows.
okay.
I think those were the big changes last time.
so,
And a fan?
Huh?
A fan?
Just a quick reminder on your capital projects fund. We have not received final invoicing on the electric bus charging units, and we will need to use a little bit of that money, as you recall from our prior conversation, to cover, because the grant didn't cover all of the infrastructure costs. So just a little plug to remember.
is that the only outstanding bill?
That's the only one I'm aware of. Lindy, as any of the other projects from the initial $200,000?
Just the grease trap replacement that'll happen over February vacation. So that's the only one I know that will come out of that money too.
Okay, great. Well,
I'm sorry.
no, yeah, go ahead.
So this estimate doesn't include those windows
Right.
without, what was it? These windows?
Yeah.
And then the ones in the gym.
Right.
So without these in the gym, we were at 107,800. So I would assume
107?
you could probably add another 25 to 30,000.
And I think that's why we talked about phasing it, right? And
Yeah.
doing, like,
Well, I don't know if we necessarily need to phase it. If
Maybe
we
here.
have 308 in there now,
I can't remember.
But we do want to make sure that we're,
but say we add another 100, now we're
Yeah.
at 408, and say, we're at 107,000 here in windows, let's call it 125. I just assume do it. That's just me.
Yeah, we'll have to get back together.
okay, yeah, get back together.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
We can discuss.
Yeah, start.
Make it,
A quick question, Patrick.
Yeah.
Is that one, because I missed the initial part of the conversation, is that one project $125,000?
Yeah, it would be replacing all the windows that need to be replaced at Stockbridge and in Rochester.
We have to go out for an official RFP for that if it's over 40,000.
It might have happened this summer. Tara will have to check with Jamie. It was done through EEI,
Yeah.
so this was just a quote.
Okay.
it
Yeah.
kind of started and then it paused and.
Yeah.
So.
If it's part of the EI work, then we're okay. But if it's something we're doing on our own, by statute, I have to go out for RFP if it's over 40,000.
Yep.
That he's reading to you came from EEI.
Yeah, that's why I didn't have to.
Go, right, because
Yeah.
it's part of the
Part of their.
Okay, just
Performance.
wanna make sure.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
no.
you so much, Tara.
Yeah.
good
Absolutely.
question.
I think that was part of our conversation. If we wanted to get
Why
quotes
wouldn't we
from
go?
anyone else, we would have to do that.
The
Yeah.
RFP process, yeah.
Pat, I want to remind you that in the summer, when it was very hot, we talked about putting some sort of window fan capability here.
Here,
Yes,
yeah,
so just putting that in the
yeah.
wish list.
Heat pump would be nice too.
Well, that's a little more.
Pretty realistic.
But yeah, a box fan will work great.
Just wait for that oscillating fan to come all the way around.
Okay. Great. So is there any more questions for Tara on the budget?
Oh, what was the tuition down?
60.
That's a 60?
Yeah.
So that's-
So if we put another 40 in, that's a total of 100. That would cover approximately, yeah,
Between 4 and 5?
4 and 5 kids, which I think would be, we would be sitting pretty, honestly. I mean, for the influx of 5 kids to come in mid-school year that we hadn't planned on, and then to be able to have the
Yeah.
money as a backup so that it doesn't affect.
And if you
And if we
look,
don't use it, we don't really need to fund it again next year.
Right, once we build it up to
there,
60 or 100, maybe we
Yeah.
fund it in smaller increments, just
yeah,
to,
or, yeah, keep it at a, certainly. If you look at Tara's tuition budget detail, the White River Valley Supervisory Union Middle and High School tuition rates are the lowest.
right, they didn't increase this year, so that was very,
Yeah.
Nice.
But I'm saying one student that stays with us in Bethel, instead of going to Middlebury, which is now 23.5, saves us, almost $4,000 if you look at and Thetford Academy, I mean, this is where our outreach and our communication plan and our advocacy of selling our product that's darn good and it's special and it should be seriously considered. There's some real dollar savings
yeah.
if the students stay within our SU.
And that 28 seems like it's an increase. I do believe over the course of the years of tuitioning, we are slowly increasing, which is good.
Yeah.
Great.
Randolph is expensive, huh?
Look at Randolph's rate.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I think we're
So
competitive in
besides,
more ways than one with Randolph.
besides the revenue portion and the fund balance, which we'll have some more further conversation on, is there any other specific questions on the expenditure budget for Lindy? You feel that this is a budget that you can successfully implement things that you're trying to do, programs that we're
Yes.
currently doing, and improve upon?
Yes.
We're not twisting your arm. It's an affirmative that this
It
is a
is.
responsible budget that can get the job done.
Yes,
Thank you.
definitely. You're not twisting my arm. No, I think we had the hard conversation last month, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Whether to take a teacher out or keep a teacher in. So,
Excellent. All right, is there any further questions? Any more questions for Tara on the budget or is there more that you want to present, Tara? That was the other question. So the education spending per pupil cost, Lindy said that we are below the threshold. Do you have what that threshold is at this point?
I thought I had it on your check sheet.
You usually do, so.
but I couldn't,
Yeah.
I thought it was just me.
Give me one quick second and I can tell you.
Okay.
$15,926.
Great.
Wow, we're way under. Wow. That's great. That was 15, right? Not
15, yeah, 15926. Okay, great, thank you. Is there any other questions for Tara? We are looking to finalize that revenue portion next and finalize the budget. We're hoping to be able to vote on this next meeting. So it would be our goal. And
Sounds like the endowment committee.
yeah, so Tara, the endowment committee is going to meet to see if there's any possibilities there that we can help contribute towards this budget. And Pat is going to look into the capital improvements and kind of make a recommendation from there as well. So we can make some decisions about that fund balance. Great. Okay, so if there's no further questions on the draft 5 of the budget, we're going to move on to 9.3, Governor's proposal on Vermont education system.
Could we switch to just jumping to 10.1, the single audit? And let
Yes,
Tara-
yes, absolutely. Thank you for being
And then we'll
conscious
go,
of
if
that.
that's okay, then go back to,
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to jump to the action item 10.1, FY24 single audit.
So because Rochester-Stockbridge Unified District received more than $750,000 in federal funding in fiscal year '24, as you recall, we had talked about this when you approved your financial statement audit, you also had to have a single audit. So there is a formula that the auditors have to use to determine what audits they have to do an audit on, or if it is a high-risk audit. And of course, all of the federal funding related to COVID relief funds and all of these extra funds were considered high risk. So they selected your high poverty schools HVAC assistance grant, the K-12 indoor air quality grant, and ESSER 3. So those are the 3 grants that a single audit was completed on, and there were no findings in any of those grants.
Great. Great. Good job in that office, Tara. Good job.
Take out the air system.
so I move that do we need to approve it?
Yep.
Yeah, you just need to accept the fiscal year 2024 single audit.
I so move.
Second.
Great. Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So moved.
Did Justine vote? Maybe she's not there.
No, unfortunately, she said she has a sick child, so
Okay.
she's unable, she's, yeah, unavailable right now.
So 4 yea, 1 abstention.
Sure. Okay. Well, thank you, Tara. Let's loop back to 9.3. Governor's proposal on Vermont education system.
There have been no changes or updates to the proposal since last week. As Bill mentioned, the full board did put together some questions, some more probing on what the implementation of that really looks like. And that's kind of where it stands right now. I mean, other than what's been put out by our own full board, which seems very well put together and thoughtful and makes sense and asks all the right questions. Hasn't been a lot of movement since that initial announcement last Wednesday. Shocking.
So, yes, please, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I was going to include in that the invitation for SU district boards to join the Rural School Community Alliance. And there's 10 school boards throughout Vermont, but this is rural, and right now they've got, going to try to do everything possible to get the legislature to do the right thing for rural community schools. That certainly includes us. So when I read their letter and everything else like that, it's not clear to me, Amy, whether we need to join as a district or is SU going to join as the SU, and then they're looking for liaisons. And my question is, if it's us, then the chair being our liaison with this group, or for us to decide what. So I have two questions. One is, do we need to take any action on this or is that all through the SU level? And then secondly, do we need to appoint a liaison to work with this group as because it sounds like weekly they're going to give us updates. This is what we're doing. Please notify or please advocate. So it's more of a question of whether we need to take action. If we do need to take action, let's do it.
Yes, yeah, go ahead.
Do you think it would be more impactful if individual districts jump on board as opposed to just the SU to see more?
I think that's why it was sent out to you guys as a board versus the SU board.
It seems like it'd be more impactful.
Right. For individual boards versus.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, we have the SU board to back us up, but as individual boards being.
Just to make that list a little
Just to make the list appear to be longer.
Yeah.
Right.
You know.
Yes, and so Jamie is looking for us to take formal action to join the Rural School Community Alliance.
So move.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay,
I think it's a good thing.
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
And do we, we need a liaison, I think.
Yep, we definitely do. Bill, you are so good at this. Is this something you're interested in?
Well, since my able colleague to my right has volunteered to be the chair of our task force, then I can try to reach his level of commitment by if the board so chooses to be our liaison.
This feels to me just so up your alley, that I just feel that you would be very successful in it. So if you
I
are
move
willing.
that we appoint Bill as our liaison.
Yeah.
Excellent. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you very much.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill.
Well, we always learn about keeping our mouth shut. I haven't learned.
We also learn to make sure you come to meetings so that we don't get voted into a position.
That's the other thing.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay, so we're now moving on to 11, new hires or resignations.
So I'm excited to announce that we have a new school nurse that will begin February 17th. Her name's Jessica Springer. She's a
She's gonna be
parent.
what?
Do we need to act on CA or did we?
You already
We
did
did.
that
We did
when
that.
you read it.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Thank you for double checking.
What's your position?
School nurse.
Oh.
Yep. Jessica Springer is going to join us on February 17th. So I'm
Okay.
excited to welcome her aboard. She's part of the community, which is great. So has kids in her school and is excited to join us.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, it's been great and very fortunate.
Oh, wonderful.
So she'll start right before vacation, kind of get her feet wet, and then be off and rolling. Which is
Okay.
great. And then Janet Whitaker is announcing her retirement at the end of the school
Oh,
year.
wow.
Yes.
Wow. She has probably put in a lot of years here.
She's been with me since pretty much the beginning, since
Yeah.
I've been here. So 7
Okay.
years, and even longer as a parent and community member.
So this is her last year. Is what
Yeah,
you're saying.
she'll finish out the school year and then some, like get us all wrapped up. for
It's
summer.
going to be a hard act to
Good for her.
follow.
Yes, it will be a hard act to follow, absolutely. But She and Erica definitely keep things running,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
But those are the two big
Okay.
hiring changes or updates.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay, let's move on to public comment.
Please pass on to Janet our best wishes,
Absolutely.
but it's bittersweet because I
It is
hate to see her go.
bittersweet. She handed it to me right before the last meeting. I was like, I can't even process this.
Yeah.
Gotta wait. Can't do this to me.
Yeah.
And it's coming.
Okay, seeing no public comment, we are going to move on to executive session. I entertain a motion to enter executive session to discuss a real estate matter.
So moved.
Second.
Inviting in.
Oh, inviting in Tara
Yeah.
and our administration's Lindy.
Sorry.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Excellent. Great. Well, we have returned to public session. And coming out of executive session, I'd like to move to execute the option to purchase and the purchase and sales agreement on the Rochester High School with the town of Rochester for $1 and authorize Superintendent Conarney to execute said agreements. Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Is there any discussion? Great. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Then we have a second motion coming out of executive session to move to enter a lease agreement with the town of Rochester for utilization of instruction space at the Rochester High School for FY26 school year in a sum not to exceed $14,800 and authorize Superintendent Conarney to execute said agreement.
Second.
Great. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Wonderful. So moved. Thank you very much, everyone. Great. Our next meeting date is going to be Monday, March 10th, 6 p.m. at the Rochester campus and via Google Meets. Is there any future agenda items that we need to put on right now? I will be sending around the board development discussion, or which is the our board goals for next meeting.
Maybe capital improvement
And
plan.
right, the capital improvement plan, and we'll hope to approve the budget.
And we're going to schedule an endowment committee.
Yes, and we'll schedule an endowment committee in the meantime, so there'll be a I don't know if it'll be a line item or a agenda item, or if that'll just be part of the budget discussion. Probably just part of
We
the
just
budget.
have to post it and.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, okay, yeah, correct. We will need to warn an endowment meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, great. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.